North Korea blinking, at least for now. Its leader, Kim Jong-un, holding back on the planned attack on Guam right after Defense Secretary James Mattis said an attack from North Korea would mean game on. So is this tough talk working from the president? Joining me right now, former National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, John Hanna, and Hudson Institute military fellow, Rebeccah Heinrichs. Good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
So what do you think? Is this tough talk working? I mean, now we see that, in fact, Kim Jong-un is backing down.
Well, you know, I would say it's a combination of tough talk from the president, tough talk from the Secretary of Defense, but it's also showing that we are, there's an ironclad commitment between the United States and our Asian allies, South Korea and Japan, and that makes a difference too. And of course, it's the sanctions that were just passed by the UN unanimously, and China has now stepped up and has said that they are going to absorb some of the hit for this, because it's China that's going to suffer the most between these sanctions, because China is North Korea's major trade partner. So with the minerals that are the minerals and seafood and coal, all of these things that we're sanctioning, it's China that's going to take the hit, but this is China's problem. China is the reason that North Korea has been able to continue its missile program thus far. And so all of these things are good, all these things are working, but it's only temporary. It doesn't solve the problem, but it definitely helps to de-escalate the tension.
Yeah, it's a great point that you make. John, you know, for a little while there, I was thinking, should we just give up on China? They haven't really done much. Your thoughts on President Trump's language and response to this North Korean threat?
Well, thanks, Maria. Look, when it comes to Kim Jong-un, you hesitate to say that anything is really working, because nothing has worked in the past, at least not for long. We may be patting ourselves on the back today, but tomorrow, next week, next month, there's almost certainly going to be some new provocation. It may not be firing at Guam. It could be new nuclear missile tests. It could be killing some South Korean soldiers, or even killing another American hostage like they did to poor Otto Warmbier. But what you do have to say with some greater confidence about what the president's heating up the rhetoric is that it is not working. All the experts who told us last week, exactly a week ago, that the president's fire and fury statements were going to back Kim Jong-un into a corner, that they were going to cause him to start some kind of suicidal nuclear war, those people have been proven precisely wrong, at least for the moment.
Right. I mean, so, you know, you could say, sure, this maniac is an unknown. We don't know what he's going to do. He may back off today and go back tomorrow with his provocations. But the bottom line is President Trump was very clear. He said it umpteen times in the last week, if North Korea does anything to the United States, they're going to have major problems. He was tough right out of the gate. So the question is, did he handle this well so far?
I think he did. I think that the president, with his national security team, has done a wonderful job. Again, the president's remarks were meant to actually just bolster the credibility of these threats from the United States. President Obama made very generic threats, saying things like all options are on the table with North Korea, saying things like our military could beat your military. And so these things were just very generic statements. President Trump is believable. He's believable whenever he says that it will be met with fire and fury if you threaten the United States. All you have to do is think about the Moab that the United States dropped on ISIS in Afghanistan, or the 59 Tomahawk missiles that we dropped on Assad's forces for using chemical weapons. I mean, this is a president who's willing to back up his threats with action, and that does have an effect with the psychology, you know, the psychological aspect whenever you're dealing with leaders like Kim Jong-un in North Korea.
Yeah, John, in his first public appearance in about 2 weeks, the head of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, said that he inspected the command of the North's army. He did this on Monday. He examined a plan yesterday to fire 4 missiles to land near the U.S. Pacific territory of Guam, and said if the Yankees persist in their extremely dangerous, reckless actions on the Korean Peninsula and in its vicinity, testing the self-restraint of the country, the latter will make an important decision, as it already declared. So he's backpedaling out of here. He's backpedaling.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Thank God.
He's looking for a way out. And again, I would stress that a week ago, none of the so-called experts on North Korea were predicting that the very first words we would hear out of Kim Jong-un's mouth in response to the president's escalated rhetoric would be, instructing his military to actually stand down from their missile threats against Guam. Now, the real test, I think, we've got to wait a week before we're too self-congratulatory when the U.S. and South Korea hold these very large annual scheduled military exercises, have always driven the North Koreans nuts in the past. They've always been used as an excuse for things like new missile tests. If, in fact, all we get out of Kim next week is more heated rhetoric but no new military provocations, then I think we'll be in a position to say with some greater degree of confidence that the Trump administration strategy is really beginning to get some traction, not just with the North Koreans, but more importantly, perhaps with the Chinese as well.
Right. So let's talk about the neighborhood, if you will. What do you want to see, Rebeccah, out of Japan? Should we expect anything there? The China story is ongoing. I recognize that, but I wonder if there's more to be done out of China. And then, as John just mentioned, South Korea, the president there saying that Seoul would seek to prevent war by all means, even asking the U.S. to back off.
Well, that's not the only thing that the president of Seoul, of South Korea, has said regarding this subject. He also had a phone call with the president, and he was very pleased with the president's tough talk, the way the president was handling the situation. But, you know, he's the president of his own country, and so he also has to demonstrate that he's the leader of his own country. But it does look like South Korea is deferring to American leadership on this problem in general, which I think is a wise decision. With Japan, Japan has come out very strong in strong support of American leadership in handling the North Korea problem. We collaborate with the Japanese on military operations, on missile defense systems. We need to continue doing that. So you really do see a squeeze coming out of the neighborhood on North Korea. The China piece, it's difficult to overstate how important this is. The fact that President Trump was able to get the Chinese to now say they're going to enforce these sanctions, it's only, you know, sanctions are only a small part, but if the Chinese can actually work with the United States now to squeeze Pyongyang, this is not a crazy man in Pyongyang. This is a man who's cruel and inhumane, but he understands that he wants to stay alive and he wants to keep his regime alive. And so if he understands that's at risk, he's going to start behaving, I think, more responsibly.
I'm glad you said that, because you're right. It's not crazy. It's cruel. It's killer. It's thug. All right, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for weighing in. We appreciate it.